Hi everyone, I'm Daniel, and in this video we'll talk about another archetype for Arkham Horror the card game. Today, it's playing around with Doom. Let's dive in. As you know, the game puts Doom on the agenda or other scenario cards as a kind of clock. Any Doom in play counts towards flipping the agenda, and once you flip the final agenda, you run out of time and the game is over. So why would you, as a player, want to put Doom in play yourself? Well, adding Doom to your own cards has explosive benefits. We'll see this on each of the individual cards, but you might be able to do extra damage, or save a lot of resources, or draw a lot of cards. On the other hand, leaving Doom in play has a huge penalty. If Doom on your own cards causes you to advance the agenda earlier than you would have otherwise, that will cost you something like 1 round for each Doom. Now, in solo, that's just 3 actions, but in a 4-player game, you're robbing everyone of a turn, so that's more like taking 12 actions away. This isn't inevitable, of course, so we'll be talking about cards and strategies that keep this from happening. And as we'll see, there are a few cards in other classes that remove Doom from play, but all of the payoffs for playing around with Doom are exclusively in Mystic, so we'll certainly be seeing a lot of purple cards. Okay, so as I just mentioned, leaving Doom around and letting the agenda advance prematurely is a huge risk for the Doom archetype. Any advantage you might have gained from the cards that put Doom into play really gets wiped out if you lose a round or two, especially at higher player counts. So there's basically 2 things you can do to mitigate the Doom in play, and most Doom decks will make use of both. First, you can play conservatively and only add Doom during the witching hour. This is the round before the agenda would advance. For example, if the Doom threshold is 6, and you already have 5 Doom on the agenda itself, you can go crazy and add as much Doom as you want to all of your cards, because next round the agenda is going to advance anyways, and all Doom in play is removed when the agenda advances. So, there's essentially no risk to putting Doom into play, but you only get to do this a few times per game. If you're not really playing a Doom deck, but still want to include a few cards that get Doom placed on them, like Arcane Initiate, this is a good strategy to keep in mind. The other thing you can do is remove Doom or cards with Doom on them from play before the agenda would advance. This is a lot trickier because you need to have the cards or abilities to remove the threatening Doom and also get the timing right. The simplest way to get rid of Doom on your own assets is to remove the assets themselves. This can be done by either playing another card in its place, as long as you don't have any free slots left, or by defeating an asset with damage or horror. Some cards also have their own built-in way of removing Doom from them. Remember, the agenda only advances during the check Doom threshold step of the Mythos phase, so you only really need to think about doing this when the agenda would advance during the next round. Well, that's not exactly true. In many scenarios, you can't always predict how many rounds are left before the agenda advances. This happens whenever there are Treachery cards that add Doom to play or advance the agenda when you draw the card, either during the Mythos phase or any other time during the round. The most iconic card here is, of course, Ancient Evils, and it shows up in every campaign at least once. Next we have Mysterious Chanting, which adds 2 Doom to the nearest cultist enemy in play. This isn't a big deal if you have a chance to kill the cultist first, because then the Doom doesn't matter, but imagine if you draw this card first, and then your friend draws Ancient Evils, which can advance the agenda. You've just added 3 Doom and caused an agenda flip with basically no counterplay. This is bad enough on its own, but if you put your own Doom on your own cards, and that's what pushed the Doom over its threshold, you're going to feel pretty bad about it. Lastly, Spires of Carcosa is a very scary card because getting rid of the Doom is going to cost you at least 2 actions, since you must use the Investigate action on the card. 2 actions is not so bad, but you have to pass the tests and use your intellect skill, which is not always possible, say if you're a mystic and you plan on getting clues using your willpower. On the other hand, you are a mystic, so there is counterplay to these cards and the many other cards like them, and that's Ward of Protection. The level 2 version I'm highlighting here because you can't always be sure that you'll be the one drawing the Doom Treacheries. Okay, moving on to the cards themselves. I'm basically dividing them into 2 sections. First, where Doom is part of the cost of the card's powerful effects, and secondly, Doom Management, where the card helps you get rid of Doom in play. As we'll see, there are some cards that do both things at once, but I've included them just in this first section. And as usual, I'm generally not going to read all the card text out loud. I'm really just trying to organize the cards thematically for you and talk about what they do in Doom decks. Feel free to pause the video or look up the cards more extensively on ArkhamDB if you're not so familiar with the cards. First, 2 versions of Arcane Initiate. Here, the cost of 1 Doom is for a very cheap ally that will draw you a card for free for the rest of the time that she's in play. Basically, there's 2 ways that people play her. One, wait until the witching hour to play the card, and then the Doom doesn't really matter. Or 2, play her early and kill her off before the agenda would advance. For the level 3 version, you could skip putting the Doom on entirely, but that's not what this video is all about. Next up is Alyssa Graham, another early Doom ally. She gives you +1 intellect, so this is a nice fit for any mystic who wants to use that stat, like Marie Lambeau. Her ability lets you look at the top of the encounter deck, or any player's deck, so you know it's coming. Now if that thing is bad enough, you can put a Doom on her, but how bad must that thing be to risk the agenda advancing early? One more ally, and that's David Renfield. Again, you can decide whether or not to put Doom on him, but if you do, you'll get +1 willpower and then 1 resource for each Doom on him when you use his free triggered ability. In high Doom threshold agendas, this can get absolutely nuts, like picking up 3 or 4 resources without spending an action. Like Alyssa, your aim is to get rid of David by having him soak damage or horror, thereby defeating him and removing the Doom from play. Next, we have Blood Pact, which can't be assigned damage or horror, so you need to find another way to remove the Doom, or only use it during the witching hour. The rate of return for both versions of Blood Pact is pretty good, but you're pretty much only going to think about Blood Pact level 0 in Dexter Drake, as we'll talk about a bit later. Last few sets of cards all take up a hand slot, so you can remove the Doom by playing another asset to take its place, as long as you've already filled up all of your hand slots first. The Abyssal Tome is a very neat way to fight using willpower or intellect. Adding the Doom allows you to increase your skill value and how much damage you do, up to a 4 damage attack. Divermus Mysterious is another tome, and this one uses Doom to let you play a spell or insight event from your discard pile, reducing its resource cost by 1. It's a little bit of recursion in Mystic. You have to remove that event from the game afterwards, but you probably weren't getting it back any other way. Now we have all of the Doom charms. They all work more or less the same way. They have 2 abilities. The first one allows you to exhaust it and put Doom on it for some strong effect, and the second one lets you remove the Doom under some condition. As a reminder, if the card is exhausted, you can still use the second ability. So in most cases, you should be able to put the Doom on the card and remove it in the very same round. So, first up is Dowsing Rod. The Doom gives you a free move, and the upgraded version gives some additional skill value as well. You can get rid of the Doom by discovering the last clue on a location. For healing, there's Hollowed Chalice. The Doom helps you heal a little bit more. There's no upgraded version for this one. So let's move on and take a look at the weapon version, that's Ceremonial Sickle. This Doom helps pass the test and deal extra damage. The upgraded version even more so. Okay, last card on this page is Ghastly Possession, which I just threw here because I had room, but it does have the option of putting Doom on an asset for a skill boost. You can also use it to remove Doom, or replenish uses. That's cool too, but not really relevant here. The last charms are, unsurprisingly, the evade ones. These ones are kinda neat because they allow you to evade an enemy at a connecting location. For example, if there's a hunter that's about to catch up to you. Getting rid of the Doom is a bit harder than the other Doom charms though, since you have to use a second ability and succeed by 2. Finally, another skill, and this one powers up the more Doom there is in play, which could be on the agenda or on your own cards, or some combination. Moving on, let's look at the cards that primarily help out for managing all of the Doom you've accumulated on your cards. El Rubash is a bit complicated. First, if you have an asset with Doom on it, you can exhaust her to attach that asset to her card. Those assets still do take up slots, but now when you resolve a skill test using that asset, you get +1 skill value, even if they no longer have Doom on them. Very cool, but even better is that if you do have Doom on those assets, one of those Doom tokens doesn't count towards the agenda threshold. Just keep in mind that the Doom goes away when the agenda does eventually advance, and if Elle herself leaves play, so do any cards attached to her. Elle is a great 2 XP add to your Doom deck, but if you're really having a problem with Doom, consider spending 6 experience on Sin Eater. You can dump Doom on here for free once per round, and when you're ready for 1 measly action, you can get rid of all of it. Yes, all of it. Lastly, why is Summon Servitor here? No real reason other than when you play it, you must discard another asset you control, and that could be a nifty way to get rid of an asset with too much Doom on it. Sacrifice is much the same. You can turn your chock full of Doom asset into 3 cards, or 3 resources, or any combination thereof. Finally, we have 2 versions of Moonlight Ritual, which gets rid of just the Doom without discarding the asset outright. Notably, the upgraded version is fast. Lastly, here are some cards that can remove Doom. Unfortunately, these are all outside of the Mystic class, so maybe these cards are for you if your teammate is playing with Doom and is absolutely frightening you with how close they're cutting it. These first 2 allow you to remove Doom from the current agenda, which will give you some more time to get rid of Doom elsewhere. The next 2 also work in a similar way. Fortune or Fate cancels placing Doom on any scenario card, including the agenda, and Hallow can remove Doom from any card in the game, but usually it will be the agenda, but sometimes it could be useful to remove it from a location. That's it for the cards. On to the most likely investigators to play around with Doom extensively. First off, Marie Lambeau. Her ability is that she gets an additional action to play or use a spell as long as she has Doom on a card she controls. Now, she doesn't have a way to get Doom on any cards, so she'll really want to play cards like Arcane Initiate and leave it in play for as long as possible. She's also a natural fit for the Doom charms like Dowsing Rod, although she cannot take any of the level 4 versions. She can take any spell cards, levels 0 through 5, so she could take the aforementioned Hollow. Now, her weakness, Baron Sanity, can be a problem since he takes up an ally slot, but he can be beneficial since you can give him Doom and get her extra action. The trick is being able to get rid of him with agendas that have a very low Doom threshold. One potential solution is Marie's signature, which prevents an agenda from advancing. Okay, next up is Amina Zidane. Her ability discounts an asset by 3 as long as you place a Doom on it as well. A 3 resource reduction once per round is very strong and opens up card slots for things other than economy. There's another interesting thing Amina can do with this ability though, and that's with the charms that remove Doom from themselves. For example, let's look at Ceremonial Sickle. Normally, if you pay full price, you'll need to take the first action to place a Doom, and then take the bottom action to defeat an enemy to remove the Doom. With Amina's ability, you can get the 3 resource discount, and then immediately get rid of the Doom by killing a 1 health enemy. Unlike Marie, Amina doesn't really want Doom sitting around for long, one reason being that her signature weakness is an Ancient Evils in your deck. On the other hand, if it whiffs, it goes back into your deck. That's not really any good either. Next, let's look at Dexter Drake. Nothing on his card says anything about Doom, but he really is a Doom investigator. The reason why is that his ability lets you discard any asset you control without spending any actions. So you can stack up Doom on a single asset as much as you want, knowing that you have a panic button to get rid of it all at any point. The only downside is that you might want that asset back, so plan accordingly or draw the Elder Sign. Alright, the next investigator is no one. I usually try to come up with 5 investigators who can really lean into the archetype, but this time I couldn't come up with anyone else. Yes, any mystic can take the cards on this list, but none of them can really take advantage of the Doom or get rid of it like Marie, Amina, or Dexter can. So what honorable mentions can you think of? Gloria? Daisy? Safina? Someone else? Let me know in the comments below. So that brings us to the end of this archetype guide. I hope you enjoyed looking at the cards with me. I'm not sure that Doom is a fully fleshed out archetype quite yet, despite all the new cards just released from the Scarlet Keys, so we'll start to see if we get some more cards that make it a stronger and more well-rounded archetype. Until then, check out some of my other videos here on the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.